In today's lesson, we are going to be taking a look at iterations. So just a quick breakdown. First, we're going to start with a quick overview of the whole iteration topic and add to it as we go along. And we're going to work through practice questions for most of this lesson. All right, starting off with question 1. We need to use the iteration formula, all of this, with x0 equals minus 2 to find the values of x1, x2, x3. Okay, I'm sure you've come across iteration questions before. The best way to look at these styles of questions where we're working out x1, 2, and 3 is to look at this formula as kind of like a function machine. Okay, so we put in one value, which is xn, and we sub in that value here, xn, and we get an answer. And then we keep doing that until we get a numerical value. So if we're trying to get x1, we get that with this formula by doing x0 plus 1. So we're going to write out the formula as is. And the only thing that's going to change is in xn is now going to be x0. Okay, so I'm just going to write it down with this x0 first, and we can sub in the values just so it makes a bit more sense. Okay, when you're doing your working out, you don't have to do all of this, just doing it one time to explain it. So this will now be 0 plus 1x1 equals minus 5 plus 2 over x0, which is minus 2. They will always give us this value, squared. Now for these questions, it is best to use our calculator because we are going to utilize the answer function to find out the remaining solutions. So with my calculator, I'm just going to write out everything that's on here. So x1 is minus 4.5. Now, how do we get x2? We do x1 plus 1. So this value will be x1, which is this answer we just found out. So the way we find x2 is we do the exact same formula, but here we sub in the previous answer, so minus 4.5. And with our calculator, we don't need to write out another formula. We just delete this and add in answer. That gives us this value. And x3, same thing again. We're using the previous answer. So I'm just going to press equals again. And that is our answer. Okay, the more you do these questions, the quicker you can do them. Iterations isn't too difficult of a topic once you get the hang of it. All right, question 2. Same thing. We're given a formula, we're given x0, and we need to find x1, 2, and 3. So x1 is going to be this same equation. I'm just substituting in 1 for xn. is a value of 1.25. x2, again everything the same, we're only changing this value for x. Last one now. Just hit equals again on the calculator because we've got answer in there already. Okay, that's 3 marks. Moving on to question 3. Now, this is another style of question that you could get within this iteration topic. So we need to show that this equation here has a solution between x equals 1 and x equals 2. Now, the way we are going to do this, and I'll explain why we do this, we need to sub in the value of x equals 1 and x equals 2, two separate lines, into this equation. So 3, 1 cubed plus 1 minus 10. Get a value for that, and a value for when x is 2. Now, using our calculator, let's create that equation. Get a value of minus 6. Then when we sub in 2, we get a value of 16. Now, what do you see is the difference between both of these numbers? One has an answer that is negative, and the other has an answer which is positive. So, therefore, this shows that the solution for this equation lies between 1 and 2. Okay, so that is the working out that gets us 4 marks, but I want to go into why that's the case. So I'm going to just minimize this. So if we think about algebra and solutions, how do we know we've got a solution for an equation? If we found the solution for this equation, the value of x, once we sub that value in, it's going to equal 0. Okay, now when we've subbed in 1, we get a negative number, and when we sub in 2, we get a positive number. So if you think about a number line, I've got minus 6 here, I've got 16 here. I want to get to 0. This is where the solution lies, okay? And this is when x is 1 and here x is 2. So ultimately we need an x value that gets us to here, right in the middle. So with the value of x equals 1, I get a negative number, which is too small. But then if I use x equals 2, I get a positive number. So ultimately that sign change shows us that the solution for this equation is in between these two numbers. Okay, we don't know what it is exactly. It could be 1.1, 1.3, but it's in between them. Okay, so all we need to do is sub in those values and state that due to there being a sign change, the solution lies between those numbers. Okay, you don't need to explain all of this, just this point here, but that's a bit of context for you to understand why that actually is the case. Show that this equation can be written in this form. So first we're going to write out the equation. And I can see here that this has 10 minus x. So I'm just going to move over these two terms here. Okay, pretty simple. 10 minus x. So looking at this now, I want it to look like this. I know if I'm working backwards, I need to divide by 3 and cube root, which is exactly what I've got here. So 1 by 1. First I'm going to divide by 3. Always looking back at this final format. And I'm going to cube root. Okay, easy 2 marks. Moving on, part 3. Okay, so starting off with x0, using this iteration formula 3 times, we need to find an estimate for a solution. Okay, so all that means is we need to find x1, x2, and x3. Okay, so we've done a few questions together now, so I want you to just pause the video here, have a go at this, and we'll go through it in a few minutes. Okay, so let's go through this then. So x1, I'm going to do 10 minus 1.4 over 3. Plug that into the calculator. Gives us 1.420558312. For x2, I'm just going to change this to answer, which gives us a value of 1.41942546. Last one, x3, just going to press equal again. Gives us 1.419487. Okay, question 4, same thing. We've got to find x1, x2, and x3. So going to quickly go through these a bit faster now. So the formula 1 plus 1 over xn squared, with x0 being 2. x1 is 1.25. Change this to answer. This is x2. And x3. Now, part B, another question we could get with iterations. Here we have to explain the relationship between the values of x1, 2, and 3 that we found in part A and this equation here. Now, what we need to do in these questions is, if you see something like this, what you need to do is 2 things. First, you need to show that this equation here that they have given you is basically this equation here. Okay, we get there by rearranging, and once we show that is the case, then that means x1, 2, and 3, they are just estimates of a solution to this equation. Okay, so first step, we need to rearrange whichever equation they give us to make it look like this. So we've got to go from x3 minus x squared minus 1 equals 0 to this here. So wherever you see this n minus 1, this n, just get rid of that. So think of it as x equals 1 plus 1 over x squared. Okay, that's what we got to do. So let's rearrange. First I'm going to take the 1 over. Then I'm going to factorize here. Take x squared out. Take that over. Okay, this matches, and I just need this 1 now to be taken over. So x equals 1 over x squared. I'm just going to write in the same format. Okay, so we've taken this equation and matched it to the iteration equation in part A. So therefore, x1, x2, and x3 are estimates of the solution for the equation x3 minus x squared minus 1 equals 0. Okay, quick 2 marks. Rearrange this and then state that x1, 2, or 3 are estimates of a solution. Okay, so those are the main variation of questions that you usually see with iteration. Either we're finding x1, 2, and 3, kind of using this iteration function formula, just subbing in the values, or we could be asked to show that a solution lies in between two numbers, and again we've looked at that previously. Sub them both in, one is positive, one is negative. And the question we just looked at now, if you see a question talking about explaining the relationship, that basically means that this expression, this equation that they've given you, is a rearranged version of the iteration formula they give you in part A. So you just got to rearrange, show that these two are equal, and yeah, x1, 2, and 3 are estimates of the solutions. Okay. Few more questions now, and then we'll finish up. I want you to have a go at question 5 and 6a, so please pause the video here, have a go, and we will go over it in a few minutes. Okay, we're starting with x0, so we know that we've got to find x1, 2, and 3 times. Getting our calculator, 4 over xn squared plus 5, so 2 over 3. Change this to answer, 0.7346, and equals again for x3. Okay, that's done. Same thing for 6 part A, x1, x2, and x3. Cube root 10 minus 2xn, so we're starting off with 2. Change this to answer. And equals once more. Okay, nice and easy. You should be getting the hang of it now. Part B, 1 mark. The values of x1, 2, and 3 found in part A are estimates of the solution of an equation x3 ax plus b equals 0. Find the value of a and b. Okay, so if you remember from our previous question, we said that this iteration formula here is a rearranged version of another equation. Okay, so that's what this part is asking for. They want to know what is that rearranged version. So all we have to do is we need to take this equation, and again I'm going to write it out, getting rid of this n plus 1. So x equals root 3 over 10 minus 2x. I need to rearrange that so it is in this form. X cubed plus ax plus b equals 0. Okay, first things first, we are cube rooting on this side. If we take it over, we will cube x. Okay, and this equation that we're trying to find, it equals 0. So we're just going to take everything over. So x cubed plus 2x minus 10 equals 0. So we've effectively rearranged the iteration formula from part A into this, which is in this same format that they're wanting. Okay, so here A equals 2 and B equals minus 10. Okay, final question of the lesson. Part A, we're finding x, 1, 2, and 3. And for part B, we've got to explain the relationship of those values to this equation here. So starting off, we're going to sub in our value of x0 equals minus 2.5 into this formula here. Minus 2.5 squared. So x1 is minus 2.64. x2, we're going to replace this value in the brackets with answer. And we're going to press equal again for x3. Okay, part B, we've seen a question like this earlier. So if you remember, we basically need to rearrange this formula here so that it looks like this formula here. And x1, 2, and 3 can be applied to essentially both of these equations. So I'm going from x3 plus 2x squared plus 4 equals 0. And I want to get to, I'm going to again get rid of this xn's. I want to get to x equals minus 2 minus 4 over x squared. All right, first things first, I'm going to take the minus 4 over. Let's do it in a different pen. Everything else stays the same. I'm going to factorize, taking out x squared. Take that over, and as you're doing this, you should be taking a look at the desired format, just making sure each step is getting you closer to this outcome here. X on its own, we take the plus 2 over. So because they match, we would say therefore x1, x2, and x3 are all estimates of the solution Okay, that's the equation is listed in the question anyway, so we don't need to write it out. Okay, that's 2 marks there. I hope you found this video useful. If there are a few things you're not sure of, just drop a comment down below and I'll be sure to help you out. And I will catch you on the next one.